Hey, what's up everyone? This is Aaron from Studio 3B. Today I wanted to go over the install of macOS on a PC using Linux as my primary operating system to get the USB installer built. So let's get started. First, I just wanted to say I'm working in Fedora. I'm pretty sure the principles are gonna apply no matter which Linux you're in, as long as it's got the standard commands. So that being said, let's take a look at the hardware specs. I'll go to my system properties and about. So system details, I am using Fedora. Like I said, I have a Asus Z87 Pro motherboard, 32 gigs of RAM. I've got an Intel Core i7. This is a Haswell PC. It's an older PC, yes, and I'm using an AMD graphics card. This graphics card I know is supported in macOS, so this should work smoothly. The first thing you need to do is make sure you have the right hardware before you even get started. So let's get started into the guide. So what you do is go to Google and type in OpenCore Dortania guide. Click on that, look at getting started, and definitely read the prerequisites. These are very important. You need time and patience. And if you think you're gonna get this done in half an hour, you're kidding yourself. Know your hardware. Like I said, you know your CPU name and generation, your GPU, whether or not you're working with an SSD, what the model of your laptop or desktop is, your Ethernet chipset, and your internet. So read through this, and then when you're ready, go down to the finding your hardware and make sure that your hardware is compatible with OpenCore. So you're going to need to go to Linux, and you can go to these commands and you can get certain information. So let's go to terminal in Linux, and you can literally copy this command, Control C. Control Shift V is a paste command in the bash in the terminal. Okay, so I am using, like I said, this is my CPU. GPU model, same thing. Control C, Control Shift V. All right, AMD Navi 23 Radeon RX 6600. Okay, we know all this stuff. Chipset. Oh, looks like we need a sudo. So sudo elevated permissions. There we go. So chipset, there it is. I got my Z87 Pro motherboard, and I think that way you could figure out what motherboard you have. And if you're not sure your architecture, copy your motherboard name and just like Google your motherboard architecture. And if you type in architecture generation, it'll tell you that it's a 4th generation and it's Haswell architecture. So that's what we're dealing with. Okay, so next, go to creating the USB in Linux, making the installer in Linux. So you click that link. First thing you need to do, make sure you have a USB thumb drive. Okay, I have a USB thumb drive. I just inserted. It looks like I have Windows on this thumb drive. I'm probably just gonna wipe it out. So we'll work with that. It has to be at least 4 gigabytes, which is not very hard to find these days. Okay, we're gonna download macrecovery.py from the OpenCore. Looks like they're up to version 1 now, which happened 4 days ago. Great news. So we're gonna use this version. So I'm gonna download the release version, but if this is your first time with this computer, I highly recommend downloading the debug version. Reason being, there's more debug information in there for you to get troubleshooting help. I'm extracting this to my downloads, and then we go down to utilities, Mac recovery. Now in here you see we have macrecovery.py. So what you're going to do is copy this location, and you can always type clear on your terminal to just clear out the terminal contents. Type CD and then Control Shift V to paste that location, and you'll see that you're in that. Okay, let's go back to the guide. Now we got to run one of these commands. Now, based on your architecture and your hardware, you need to see which one of these operating systems are going to be best supported, which is the latest operating system that's supported with your hardware. I can get Sonoma going, but the thing is that the Wi-Fi and Bluetooth don't work properly. They got rid of Broadcom support in Sonoma, so I like to stick with Ventura. I know it works, and my trackpad works, and AirPlay works, and AirDrop works. So I'm going to copy this download command, Python 3, just hit copy. I know you can't see the cursor because everything's dark, but it's there. And then just Control Shift V. And then if you didn't have Python 3 installed, you would have to install that. So that's one prerequisite that I've already done. So just sit here and wait for this to download. Okay, it downloaded. It only took about a minute or less. Next thing we're going to do, look at our Mac recovery drive and see that we have the recovery image chunk list and the recovery image.dmg. Let's take a look at that. Downloads, OpenCore, utilities, Mac recovery, com.apple.recovery.boot. And it says, depending on your OS, you'll either get BaseSystem or recovery image file. So we got the BaseSystem. So this is Ventura. So that's what we want. And that's in the com.apple.recovery.boot folder. Awesome. Now we got to make the installer. And I think this is where in my last video, some of you got a little lost. So it's pretty straightforward how you do it in Linux. It's very similar to Windows. And I'm just going to do the most simple way. I think they're kind of confusing you with all the command line stuff. And that's the best common scenario, is to do everything command line, because that's a guarantee in Linux, is that you're going to have access to command line. However, that's not the only way to do it. So I'm going to show you the easy way. Just go to disks. That's if you have GNOME installed, you get this disks app, and you can do everything in here. If you don't have the GUI, if you don't have a desktop environment and you're running everything in terminal, well, if you're doing it that way, you're probably good enough to figure out how to format the drive from command line anyway. So let's just work with the GUI. See, I'm going to select the partition. I'm going to go up here and I'm going to hit format disk. And I don't need to overwrite the data because that's more of a security measure. And I'm going to click GPT, not MBR. I think that's where some of you guys might have went wrong too. So let's click format. All right, now it's all free space. So now you just press the plus sign and say create new partition, take up the whole drive. Hit next. I'm going to call this USB, and use for all file systems and devices FAT. That's what you want to use. Okay, that's got a little spinner there, so let's just give it a second. There it goes. Great. So now if you go to your files, you should have a USB with a blank contents in there. That should be at least 4 gigabytes. Mine's about 8. All right, let's go back to the next step. That is how I format my disk, and it's really that simple. This is, like I said, command line stuff that you could do, but it's not the only way to do it. Now, this is so straightforward, and I think the directions they have are just a little bit complicated because they cover a lot of scenarios. So just go back to your downloads, go to utilities, Mac recovery, copy this com.apple.recovery.boot, just click copy, go to USB and paste it right in the root of that FAT partition that you created on USB. Just paste it right there. You get a little notification saying copying. Okay, when you're done, it should indicate so. So it took about, I don't know, 3 or 4 minutes to do that. Now that we have the installer copied to the USB drive, you're going to have to get to the EFI. That is not on a separate partition in this scenario. The way we're doing this, the EFI is going to go right on the same partition as this. So what we're going to do is go to downloads, OpenCore x64, which I assume you're using, and copy this EFI directory right to the root of your USB drive. That should say copying about 67 files. Let's give that a minute. Okay, so now look at this. So here's your USB. It's a FAT32 USB. The whole thing is one FAT drive, literally, and it's GPT partitioning. So you have 2 folders in the root. You have com.apple.recovery.boot with these 2 files in it. And then you have your EFI folder with these 2 folders in it. Awesome. If you have that, you've gotten the right steps done so far. Now, adding the base files, you don't need all the files that come with the EFI. So let's go to, it's going to be a lot easier to go in this view. There we go. EFI, OC, ACPI, nothing in there. Drivers. It says here all you need is open runtime. So I'm going to get rid of everything else. Put everything away here. Great. Let's go to Kexts. There shouldn't be anything in there yet. Resources as empty folders. Tools. Let's get rid of some tools. Looks like they're going to keep OpenShell EFI. So let's get rid of everything else. So if you just select all things and do Control-click to unselect OpenShell and just delete everything but. So that's it. And then now we need to place your necessary files and firmware drivers into the folders on your EFI directory. So go to Gathering Files, Firmware Drivers. You're going to need open runtime, but we already have that. We do need HFS Plus. This is a requirement. So click on that, go over here and hit download raw. Open that up, copy it, and go back to your USB, EFI, OC drivers and paste that there. There, now you have HFS Plus. We're gonna do that for a lot of different files. We're gonna be downloading them from the internet and putting them on your EFI directory in a certain structure, in a certain place. Based on your requirements, download the right files. Again, Lulu is required. So you're gonna extract the release.zip or the debug.zip and just copy this lulu.kext folder, not the DSYM folder, just the lulu.kext folder. So Kexts are kernel extensions. They show up as actual files in macOS, but these are actually folders, and you're going to deal with them as folders. So you're literally going to copy the folder onto the USB in the OC Kexts directory, hit paste. And you're going to do that for each Kext that you need to download. So I know I need extract virtual SMC. I need processor, Super IO, and SMC. I don't need the light sensor, Dell sensor, or battery manager because I'm not a laptop or a Dell. So there we go. Whatever green, absolutely required. Extract it and only copy the Kext, not the app, not the SYM, just the Kext. Copy that to your USB, EFI, OC. We're just gathering the drivers we need. Ethernet. Know your Ethernet card. So for these Intel cards, which is what I have, I'm going to download this guy. I'm not going to use the Snow Mousy. I'm just going to use Intel Mousy. Just going to copy that USB, EFI, OC, Kexts, paste. So USB Toolbox is a tool you're going to have to do in Windows or Mac OS. So we're going to do this in Mac OS, but we're not going to be able to do it yet. So let's go to the Kexts, go to the Releases tab, and download the latest. Get the USB Toolbox and UTB default and copy that. Boy, I have a lot of files open. To the USB EFI OC Kexts. All right, so now this is a temporary solution. We are going to build a USB map specifically for your PC with the USB mapping, but this should work to get you going, get you started into Mac OS. So after you've gone through all your drivers and get everything you need, go down to SSDTs. These are files that you need to install in the ACPI directory. So if under Haswell, we need the plug, so open that. There are good ways to do it and there's better ways to do it. I'm going to go to SSDTTime and I'm going to do it in Linux. So here's the download link. Okay, let's download the zip. Show in folder, extract that. Let's copy the location. Go to our terminal, clear, do CD to Control-Shift-V. And then we can do Python 3 / SSDTTime.py. There we go. So now first thing we're going to do is go back to the table where it tells you what you need to get. Under gathering files, we need the plug. So let's go to the terminal. So first you have to dump your current system's ACPI tables. Put your password in there. Now what we could do is 5 plugin type for plug. Okay, that's done. So we have that file locally. Now we also need the EC, which is fake EC. So let's do 2. Done. Then that should be it for Haswell. Great. So let's hit Q for quit. And PWD for path. This is where we are. So let's go back to, let's copy that. Let's go back to files and let's paste that in there. Okay, here's results. And then you have 2 results in here. These are the 2 that we dumped. So we need the SSDTEC.aml and the SSDTplug.aml. This is the compiled file. The DSL is the source code and you don't want that. You don't need that in your EFI folder. So copy that, go to USB, EFI, OC, ACPI, and place those two files there. For Haswell, you should have two files, EC and plug. That's your ACPI. Now, next thing we have to do is get our configuration done. So there's a file called the config.plist that configures your bootloader. So what you need to do is download proper tree. So download that, extract it, and copy the location. Go to a terminal, clear, and hit Python 3, Control-Shift-V, /property.py. And there, now you have the app that you're going to use to configure your OpenCore installation. So what you want to do is go to Downloads, OpenCore, Docs, and copy the sample.plist. Copy that file and put it in your USB EFI OC right in the root directory. Rename this file to config, all lowercase, .plist. Then go File, Open, and then you need to find the USB drive. So that's going to be for this computer. If you go to the root directory, it's in Run, Media, your name, USB. Now it could be in several different places depending on your operating system or distribution of Linux you're using. Go to EFI OC, there's your config.plist, click Open. All right, now you get the file ready to go and editable. Okay, so what you want to do first is delete these warnings up here, and then always Control S to save that. You don't want to leave things changed but not saved, because then you'll lose your changes if you forget to save them. So first thing you're going to do is, after you've deleted the top lines, do File, OC Clean Snapshot, and select the root OC directory. So your USB drive, EFI OC, select this directory, and that will load all the files you've downloaded to that EFI folder and configure them in here. Then you Control S to save that. That's a good starting point. Next thing we have to do is configure some properties. So come on down. If you're not sure what you're doing in here, you need to kind of read through everything very carefully. Let's go to device properties. So looks like you need to change something in there. Let's go here to device properties, and it looks like you don't have the right node in there. So copy this, you're going to add a node here. So copy that string and do under add, click new child under add and expand and paste that in. And then you want to convert this to a dictionary. Then you want to do new child under that. So I'm using a dedicated GPU. So I'm going to use desktop Haswell iGPU is only used for computing tasks and doesn't drive a display. So that's the one I'm going to use. So I want this string. So copy this string and put that here, and then make sure there's no white space at the end. Change this to data, not string, and copy the value that's correct for you and put it here and save. This is saying if you have an HD 4400, which is unsupported in macOS. I don't know what I have for my graphics, so I'm just going to put this device ID here. I think this is the right thing to do. So copy device ID, put new child here, paste, change this to data, and I'm going to put this device ID here. And that should take care of the graphics. All right, let's keep on going down. I'm not doing onboard audio. So if you have onboard audio, you need to pay attention to Apple ALC. I use USB audio. So these have highlighted the changed things that you need to look out for, but you also should read through every line and see what you have to change. But I'm gonna go grab this and kind of do a side by side. Go down to quirks. This should be true, so I changed that. Custom Symbios GUID is false. That's correct. Disable IO mapper is true. Should be true. Lapic kernel panic not necessary. Panic no Kexts dump should be true. And power timeout kernel panic should be true. Always remember to save the file. Let's keep going down. Let's go down to debug. Apple debug should be true for now. Apple panic should be true for now. And target should be 67, not 3. You may have to hit an unlock on your keyboard. Okay. Scan policy. Under security, change that to 0. Secure boot model should be default. And vault should be optional, not secure. So optional, spell that correctly. Going down to boot args. If you can't find something, you can go Control F and type in boot-args. There we go. So -v is verbose, that's good. Keep sims is 1, that's good. And then we could add some debug information. Make sure you type this right, because if you don't type it right, it won't work. So debug equals 0x100. And then ALCID equals 1 is for audio, onboard audio. I don't need to do that. The keyboard, that's important if you don't want to have a installer in Russian, for example. So come down here. English US is this. So let's change that to a data. Let's put this here. There, that's English US. So for me, it looks like Navi GPUs, I'll get a black screen if I don't put this boot arg. So I'm going to put this AGDP mod equals Pykera. I'm going to put that in my boot args here for my particular graphics card. Platform info. So it's important to pick the right Symbios. Now here it says note 2. All of this, you have to read closely this whole guide because there's things like this in here. All of these Symbioses were dropped in macOS Ventura. So we're using Ventura. If running macOS Ventura, use a Kaby Lake Symbios. Let's click on that. Kaby Lake. So supported Symbioses. This is the one I think is going to work for me, Mac Pro 7.1. So I'm going to use Mac Pro 7.1. I just know that I've tried other Symbioses on this computer for Ventura, and I think that this is the best one for me. So now that we've done that and decided that we're going to go with Mac Pro 7.1, I'm going to download Gen Symbios. This is another Python program, so just copy the location, go to the terminal. We need a new terminal window because you're already running proper tree here. So let's go new terminal window and do CD to Control-Shift-V to that location. Do Python 3 ./gen-symbios.py. And then we're going to say 3 generate Symbios. Okay, it's getting the latest information. Now let's type Mac Pro 7.1. Now this is your information you're going to put into your config under platform info generic. So Mac Pro 7.1, copy that, Control Shift C, and put that under system product name without the white space. Now serial number, you need to make sure that this is, you need to make sure that this is not being used. So go to Apple check coverage page, open that up. If you put your serial number in there, put your CAPTCHA. If it says please enter a valid serial number, that's a good serial number to use. So don't use the serial number, guys, because I'm going to use it. So serial number goes under system serial number. Board serial, it's right here. Control Shift C. That goes into MLB. Control S for save. And then SMUUID goes to this one, system UUID. And make sure that white space is gone from the end of it. And then Apple ROM goes to ROM. You should be done with that. Again, don't use these exact values, guys, because I'm using them and that's going to mess you up and it's going to mess me up too. So, all right, going on down. Drivers should be already pulled in when you did the create OC clean snapshot. Go down to ignore invalid flex ratio and put that to true. Okay, and then come on down. There's no restriction outside of for Ventura, so let's do down at APFS min date. I'll do -1. And I'll do min version -1. All right, keep on going down. Next thing you're gonna do, your USB should be good by now. You need to make sure your BIOS is set correctly. And I have a video that I've done configuring BIOS for Hackintosh. So you go back and look at that video. But once your BIOS is set, it should reboot into the USB no problem. So let's give that a shot. Once you restart your computer, press delete a couple times. All right, go to boot menu and go to the UEFI of the USB drive. So mine's a Kingston Data Traveler, so click that. All right, you're gonna get this menu. If you don't see your installer, press the space bar and go down to, or go up to USB external DMG. That Mac disk is my other Mac OS installation, so you can disregard that. Go to USB external DMG. Press enter. Give it a few minutes, and if all goes well, you should start seeing some text and eventually a boot screen. Eventually you should start seeing some text. If all goes well after that, you should see a brief Apple logo. And your mouse should work. And you should get this. Restore from Time Machine, reinstall macOS Ventura. You should get this screen. So after this, the steps are identical to all the other macOS installer videos I've created. There's really no difference between Linux and Windows method from here on out. So you should really follow the same steps that I've laid out for you and that the guide has laid out for you from here on out. If you're interested in continuing another iteration of this post-install steps, I could do another video for you, but I'm going to cut this short right here and say congratulations, you made it to the installer. And from here on out, you would format your internal hard disk and run the installer. Congratulations, you made an installer for macOS in Linux. If you like this video, please click the like button and subscribe to my channel for more audio and technology content.